This next one is also a little cheerful. It's called Late Bloomers. Picture us sitting like dead ducks underneath the spine of an apartment, protecting us like a whale's ribcage, guarding its last meal. Where we could not carry life, we carried ulcers. We, the rejected handshakes, the afterthoughts of flesh needed against its better use, a bloodline de-alkalinized, diverted in the name of sympathy, who without the turmoil of our prevailing failures could not have identified that most lethal of medicines, the rictus of comfortability. We found the uncommon strength to act against our inheritance. We drowned effigies in the public fountains, played football with the stuffed head of whomever was the current Prime Minister. We sewed pillows full of money and burnt them in the streets. We learned by example and played well the embodiment of tyrants whom treated their vessels as vassal states to subserviate every impulse and whim. I told you I wanted to gouge out the eyes, but you said it was better to leave the gentry unsupervised. For with enough time, those insatiable and never satisfied always wound up eating themselves. The world could best be understood as one huge shipping container, caught adrift on a portion of ocean beyond the cartographer's reach, locked shut and bolted tight, teeming with a clotted mass of rats. Morality could not hope to outlast the demands of the ravenous stomach. You owned dozens of crude mouths, but your favourite was the forked. When I breached the navel of your vault, I felt the warmth of a well-kept abortion. And when I returned, I was drowned in black tar and feathers. I never knew someone else held the capacity to store so much hate. As enclosed as a moth to its sealed fate, I was at peace with my helplessness as a kite within the eye of a hurricane. Treason was our sport and reason our ridicule. We sought the incontestable heat of dysfunction, for at the very least it made for interesting conversation. You told me this was to be our earthly game, to pillage the roots of the established order, to be trespassers, penetrators, public castrators, always towing an inch past whatever boundary we came up against. Yet all the while I heard nothing, except for immature revelations and old souls doomed to repeat their former mistakes. Our murder of time was a mercy killing, removing us from the misery that inhabited the breaks between our altered states. We hit our peak a few years back, and we knew we were running on fumes. Every tomorrow was another escape hatch into the constantly renewed. And when our convictions slipped, and we saw our nudes flailing and trailing behind, we fed each other the necessary lie that all late bloomers are the deadliest. So they're poems from my book. If you want, you can grab one. And I'm going to read you some newer poems that I've got on my phone. Just give me 1 second. This one is called A Missing Letter from the Bardo. I am sorry, my lover, for letting you slip. You tried to kiss me, but I was too busy spitting thorns. Postbellum, the period after a war. See also clearing the wreckage, scouring the rubble, taking stock, numbering the lost, flushing the old, compiling orphans, amputating and limbing. Read the transit from surviving to reliving. The bulb of the station's lamppost flashes like last year's cardiac arrest. On pulling in, the mindscape is still occupied. The rear view still snagged on the sign that was hung on the side of the church. How it was missing the last letter in none. And so it read, Jesus came into this world to save no believers. There is postbellum and there is antebellum, interbellum and extrabellum, timestamps denoting periods spent inside or outside of war. Read, our legacy of blood is stratiform, the most efficient measure to chronicle man. Divide him by the instances in which he's attempted to divide himself. You lived like the pendulum swing, flaying the cheeks of curated memories. With every second you failed to remember, you were thus dismembered, stretched out upon the rack between your past misdeeds and the promise of who you could be. You fluttered like a bone-white blossom petal, peeling from the gun smoke of a half-baked oblivion, and uncovered a back room of brutes, chalking up the skeleton of the next religion to restrain the flesh. The brief candle of your youth, a flickering dalliance with the playthings straight off the production line of peacetime. Read, the conjunction of peace and time. Peace, time, like the suspension of thought, vanishes the moment you notice it. Remember how the imported toy soldiers were banned on suspicion of lead poisoning. Children first explore the world by mouth, and their guardians are quick to minimize the risk of their choking on foreign parts. Remember the human tombola, how we could not stop stumbling into ourselves. The loose parts in the most elaborate stage show ever composed, a huddle of reiterated murders, clambering over one another to unground gravity and extricate ourselves from orbit. Unaware, the pursuit was the snare that bound us to cyclic existence. Undoubtedly, the son rises to slay the father, only to bed his mother by night. I have been so many things: the poisoned chalice of a spurned male, the disappointed sigh that greets extinction, the call and response of unknown pleasures, the oracle closeted in the subtext, the stall of interrupted flight patterns, the fury of a foliage of fools who only sprouted eyes yesterday to witness the propulsive rate of lies breaking under their own weight. I am sorry, my lover, for letting you slip. You tried to kiss me, but I was too busy spitting thorns. That's that one. Thank you for bearing with me. I'll read two more. If it's okay, do I have, is that all right? One more. Okay, in this case I'll read. This one's called Our Destined Outcomes. Our destined outcomes are not moored to a final period, and we are not the raw materials intended for the taxidermist's slab. There is no going back to what once was. Life is not a suspended mirage, for it holds beauty and value precisely because it is perishable. The clock became my enemy, so I vowed to be porcupine in the bubble-wrapped scenes of my censored play, if only to collapse my own settings. I went headfirst into my sinkhole and found I was naught but a ministry of falsehoods, and all the colours clinging to the vulnerable world in the semblance of static decay were leached of their pigments, slower than the march of hair loss. Through the invisible machinery of a drip feed, I woke with an imposter's memory of strays thrown by their legs into vats of concrete not yet set, pushed down with boots and sticks as far as they would sink. An ejected reject in the primordial dawn, as naked as a doe pancaked on the road, shorn of placebo friends and making do with the understudies and all the other placeholders that serve to thin these clotted capillaries of time. Oh, brave forest of unweeded souls, what does it take to unearth the sleepers within your strangled roots, to till the trampled bogs of thought and turn this poultice of momentary fantasies into mountain peaks? What is that impulse that shudders in the night like wet between the legs? What is the cost of chasing a dream? In unfurling our clipped wings, rudderless and almost entirely plucked of our startling feathers, in worming ourselves out of bedlam and the drawstrings of malice to answer the night-worn hunger of the familiar scarecrows and early risers, and to soar above the parapets of our comfortable, jaw-locked miseries. It is the continual murder of the stranger in the mirror, a knife between the shoulder blades when their back is turned. You first abused this portal of flesh. Second, you renounced it. Now, you reclaim it as the vehicle toward the promised land, to slay the doppelgangers that of you they once portrayed. Thank you for your time.